Good day, future CPAs! In today's discussion, I am going to discuss Notes to Financial Statements Part 1. The related standards under this topic are Past 1, Past 8, and Past 10. So to begin our discussion, let's first understand what is Notes to Financial Statements. So ang notes is siyang integral part ng isang complete set ng financial statements. Integral part meaning mahalaga siya. Bakit siya mahalaga? Dahil ang Notes to FS, pinaprovide ito yung mga information in addition dun sa mga pinipresent na entity in their other financial statements. So information regarding dun sa mga naging basis ng entities sa paggawa nila ng FS, information na required ng PFRS, and other information na hindi required ng PFRS pero relevant info siya na kailangan ng mga users ng FS. So yung past one, nire-require nito yung mga entities na mag-present ng notes in a systematic manner. Normally, ang structure ng notes ay itong mga sumusunod. First, general information on the reporting entity. Nakapaloob dito yung domicile or yung location or place kung saan nagko-conduct ng business yung isang entity. Yung kanilang legal form, address ng registered office or yung principal place ng business, description sa nature of operations ng business, and yung principal activities nila. Second, statement of compliance with the PFRS and basis of preparation of financial statements. So nakalagay yung explicit and unreserved statement na yung entity is complying with PFRS. Third, nakalagay sa notes yung summary ng mga accounting policies methods na ginamit ng entity. Fourth, yung disaggregation or yung breakdowns ng mga line items and yung other supporting information. So yung mga computation paano ka nag-arrive dun sa value ng mga items sa FS dito nakapaloob. Fifth, other disclosures na required ng PFRS such as contingent liabilities, material events after the reporting date, changes in accounting policies, etc. And lastly, yung mga other information naman na hindi required ng PFRS pero based on sa judgment ng management ay relevant info siya na kailangan i-disclose sa notes for better understanding of the FS. Accounting policies. Ito yung mga specific principles, bases, conventions, rules, practices o yung lahat ng methods na ginagamit ng entity sa pag-create at pag-present ng kanilang FS in accordance with PFRS. So basically, ito yung magiging basis ng entity paano nila ipapresent yung kanilang FS. So when selecting and applying accounting policies, may hierarchy tayong sinusunod. So sa pag-account ng transaction, yung entity, it should refer first to PFRS which consists of the PFRS, past and interpretations. In the absence of PFRS, ang gagamitin is yung management judgment. When making the judgment, management considers the applicability of the references listed in the presentation. Changes in accounting policies. Nare-require ng past 8 yung consistent selection and application of accounting policies. Pinapayagan lang nito yung entity na magpalit ng accounting policy if ito ay required ng PFRS or it results in reliable and more relevant information. So usually, yung change in accounting policy results from a change in measurement basis. So for examples, change from FIFO to weighted average cost formula for inventories, change from cost model to the fair value model, etc. Yung accounting treatment for changes in accounting policies, meron tayong sinusunod na order of priority. So kapag ang entity ay nagbago na accounting policy na sinusunod, they shall refer first to any specific transitional provision of PFRS na nagdi-deal specifically dun sa accounting policy na yon. So kapag wala, i-account ng entity yung change na yon using retrospective application. So retrospective application meaning i-apply mo siya as if gano'n na siya from the beginning pa lang. So let's say, 2021 ngayon, 2020 yung previous year kung kailan nag-start, retrospective application yung assumption is as if gano'n na yung policy mo since 2020 pa lang. So kapag yung retrospective application ay impracticable, meaning it cannot be done after making every reasonable effort to do so, then prospective application yung gagamitin. Prospective meaning ang application is from this day onwards or in the current and future periods. For illustration, during 20X1, ABC Co decided to change from average cost formula for inventory valuation to the FIFO cost formula. Inventory balances under each method are as follows. Gen 1 average 1M, FIFO 1.2M, Dec 31 average 2M, FIFO 2.1M, income tax rate is 30%. What is the net cumulative effect of the accounting change in ABC's opening retained earnings balance? So to compute for the cumulative effect, ang gagamitin natin is yung beginning balances ng inventory. So, average inventory ng Gen 1, 1M minus yung FIFO inventory ng Gen 1 na 1.2M, that is 200K, multiplied by 70%, that is 100% minus 30% na tax rate, that will be equal to 140K, which will be the cumulative effect net of tax. Voluntary change in accounting policy. So nakita natin kanina na sa hierarchy na in the absence of PFRS, your entity may adopt a pronouncement of other standard setting body gaya ng US GAAP issued by the FASB. So if ang nangyari ay yung other standard setting body na yun in-amend yung adopted pronouncement and yung entity nag-decide na i-adopt nila yung amended version, yung event na yun yung tinatawag nating voluntary change in accounting policy. So ina-account natin ito using retrospective application. And take note, yung early application ng PFRS is not considered as voluntary change in accounting policy. Change in reporting entity. It is a change from reporting as one type of entity to another type of entity. So examples are presenting consolidated or combined FS in place of FS of individual entities. So let's say, before your company owns 30% of another company, but then nag-purchase ka ng shares of stocks from that same company, so now you own 65% of that company. So may control ka na, therefore, you have to consolidate or use consolidation method. Next, changing specific subsidiaries that make up the group of entities for which consolidated financial statements are presented. So dito, there is a change in specific subsidiaries. So they're going to be out or they're going to report separately. Therefore, not consolidated anymore. And next, changing the entities included in combined FS. So dito naman, may mga companies na dati included, now they are not included. Or may mga companies na dati hindi included, now they are included. So yung mga changes na yan, ina-account natin siya retrospectively. Under Past 8, there are only two accounting changes. Changes in accounting policy and change in accounting estimate. Yung change in reporting entity, hindi siya specifically mentioned sa PFRS. Changes in accounting estimate. So yung change in accounting estimate is either some adjustment of the carrying amount of an asset or liability or change in the pattern of periodic consumption of this asset or liability. And yung mga changes na to, kailangan nag-result siya from new information or new development and should not arise from correction of errors. In this table, makikita natin yung difference between change in accounting policy and change in accounting estimate. Sabi natin kanina, yung change in accounting policy normally, nagre-result siya from change in measurement basis. Samantalang change in accounting estimate, normally nagre-result siya from changes on how the expected inflow or outflows of economic benefits are realized from assets or incurred on liabilities. Example ng change in accounting estimates are change in depreciation or amortization method, change in estimated useful life or residual value of a depreciable asset, and the like. So kapag mahirap i-distinguish kung change ba siya in accounting policy or change in accounting estimate, yung change ititrip natin siya as change in accounting estimate. Accounting for changes in accounting estimates. Yung changes in accounting estimate, ina-account natin siya using prospective application, meaning na-recognize natin yung effects ng change in profit or loss either in the period of change or in the period of change and future periods if both are affected. So pag prospective, tandaan natin yung beginning balance ng retained earnings and yung previous FS ay hindi natin nire-restate. For illustration, on Jan 1, 20X1, ABC Co. acquired equipment for 1M. The equipment will be depreciated using the straight-line method over 20 years. The estimated residual value is 100K. In 20X6, following a reassessment of the realization of the expected economic benefits from the equipment, ABC Co. changed its depreciation method to sum of the year's digits. The remaining useful life of the asset is estimated to be 4 years and the residual value is changed to 50K. Compute for the depreciation expense in 20X6. So sa pag-compute, mayroon tayong 2 steps na gagawin. Step 1, kukunin natin yung carrying amount ng equipment as of date of change. So para makuha yon, yung historical cost mo na 1M less residual value na 100K, yung depreciable amount will be 900K divided by 20 estimated useful life. So 45K yung annual depreciation expense natin based on straight line method. To compute for the carrying amount ng Gen 1 20X6, yung historical cost mo na 1M less 225K na accumulated depreciation, paano yung nakuha? Yung na-compute natin kanina na 45K times 5 years. So going back, 1M less 225K, that is 775K, that will be the carrying amount ng Gen 1 20X6. Next step, i-depreciate natin yung na-compute natin na carrying amount dun sa step 1. Taking into account any changes in depreciation method, useful life, and residual value. So, carrying amount ng Gen 1 20X6, 775K less residual value na 50K. Yung revised depreciable amount natin is 725K. Multiply natin sa SYD rate na 4 over 10. Bakit naging 10 yung denominator? 4 times the quantity of 4 plus 1 over 2. So, depreciation expense for 20X6 is 290K. Errors. Ito yung mga misapplication na accounting policies, mathematical mistakes like mali ka ng pagkaka-add or subtract, oversights, or misinterpretation of facts and fraud. So in case na yung FS, meron siyang either material errors or immaterial errors, made intentionally, it means that yung FS na entity hindi siya nag-comply with the guidelines of PFRS. Material errors, ito yung mga errors na nakakapag-cause ng misstated FS. And dahil dito, maapektuhan yung decision and understandability ng mga users ng FS mo. So yung intentional errors naman, consider siya as a fraud. Next, meron tayong two types of errors according to the period of occurrence. Current period and prior period errors. Ang pinagkaiba nila, yung current period errors, ito yung mga errors na nangyari in the current period, pero na-discover siya either during the current period din or after na ng current period, pero before ma-authorize for issue yung FS. Kinokorek ito simply by correcting entries. Yung prior period errors, ito naman yung mga errors na nag-occur in one or more period pero na-discover lang siya either during the current period or after the current period but before ma-authorize for issue yung FS. Kinokorek siya using retrospective restatement. So yung retrospective restatement, it is either restating the comparative amounts for the prior period presented in which the error occurred, or if yung error nag-occur before the earliest prior period presented, you should restate the opening balance of the assets, liabilities, and equity for the earliest prior period presented. So ano ba yung pinagkaiba ng retrospective restatement sa retrospective application? Yung retrospective restatement, kinokorek mo yung prior period error as if hindi nag-occur yung error na yon. Pag retrospective application naman, ina-apply mo yung accounting policy as if umpisa pa lang yun na yung policy na ina-apply mo. So katulad kanina, kapag impracticable, i-correct natin yung error prospectively. Illustration for current period error. On Jan 10, 20x2, prior to authorization of ABC Co's Dec 31, 20x1, financial statement for issue, the accountant of ABC Co received a bill for an advertisement made in the month of Dec 20x1, amounting to 400K. This expense was not accrued as of Dec 31, 20x1. Requirement: prepare the correcting entries assuming books are still open and books are already closed. Ignore income taxes. So yung books still open, ibig sabihin yung closing entries ay hindi pa nagagawa. Kaya pwede natin gamitin yung nominal accounts sa ating correcting entries. While kapag books are already closed naman, yung closing entries ay nagawa na kaya hindi na natin gagamitin yung nominal accounts, instead gagamit tayo ng real accounts. So ang correcting entry pag books still open ay debit advertising expense for 100K and credit advertising payable for 100K. Pagka naman book are already closed, debit retained earnings for 100K and credit advertising payable for 100K. Illustration for prior period error. On Jan 15, 20x3, while finalizing its 20x2 financial statements, ABC Co discovered that depreciation expense recognized in 20x1 is overstated by 400K. Ignoring income tax, what is the entry to correct the prior period error? So yung prior period error, kinokorek siya by adjusting the beginning balance of retained earnings for the earliest period presented. So, ang entry natin for Jan 15, 20x3 is debit accumulated depreciation for 100K and credit retained earnings for 100K. Types of errors. First, errors in principle. Ito yung mga errors na nakomit mo dahil wala kang enough na knowledge dun sa mga accounting standards or namali ka ng gamit dun sa mga available information or na interpret mo yung accounting standards whether intentionally or unintentionally. So take note, intentional errors are fraud. Pag intentional misstatement of FS, ang tawag naman ay fraudulent financial reporting. Next, clerical and similar errors. Ito yung mga mathematical mistakes, oversight or misinterpretation of facts. Examples are transplacement error. And dito, yung amount ng digits, it's either tumaas or bumaba. Example, yung 1,000 na i-record mo siya ng 100 or 10,000. Transposition error. Dito, napagpalit mo yung digits ng amount. Example, 15,652, na-record mo na 15,625. Error of omission. May dapat kang ginawa pero hindi mo ginawa. Example, nakalimutan mo i-record yung isang transaction. Errors of commission. Example, na-double mo yung record sa isang transaction or na-record mo lang ito partially. Compensating errors. Example, namali ka na account na record na dapat ay sales account pero na-record mo siya as utilities expense. Accounting system error. May bug yung computer mo or virus. And last, counterbalancing and non-counterbalancing errors. Ito yung mga errors na nakaka-affect sa financial position and income statement. Kapag counterbalancing errors, ito yung mga errors na if remain uncorrected, makakorek siya automatically or automatically mare-reverse yung effect niya sa FS sa next accounting period. So dito sa table, if yung counterbalancing error mo sa year 1 sa profit or loss ay overstated, sa year 2 magiging understated ito if it remain uncorrected. Yung year 3 unaffected siya, yung statement of financial position naman sa year 1 erroneous pero in year 2 and year 3 unaffected. Yung mga example nito ay yung errors relating to inventory, purchases, sales, prepayments, and unearned items, and accruals for income and expenses. Non-counterbalancing error. Ito yung mga error na if remain uncorrected, hindi siya automatically mako-correct or ma-offset in the next period. So dito sa table, ang naapektuhan lang ng error sa profit or loss is yung year 1 o yung period kung kailan na-commit yung error. Yung subsequent periods unaffected siya. Sa statement of financial position naman, it will remain erroneous until ma-discover and ma-correct yung errors. Examples: misstatement and depreciation, erroneous capitalization of cost that should be expensed outright, non-capitalization of capitalizable cost. For illustration, dito, kukumpitin natin yung correct profits ng 20x1 and 20x2 and yung correct retained earnings ng 20x1 and 20x2. So, meron tayong unadjusted profits sa problem na 1M sa 20x1 and 2M sa 20x2. Next, i-list natin yung correction. So, nakalagay dyan, may understatement ka ng Dec 31 20x1 sa inventory na 50k. So, 20x1, 50k, i-add natin yan sa mga ibang corrections pa kasi pag understatement, kinokorrect siya by addition and pag overstatement naman, kinokorrect siya by deduction. Sa 20x2, yung 50k nakadeduct siya kasi nag-counterbalance or automatically reverse. Next, sabi sa problem, acquisition cost ng equipment is erroneously charged as expense in 20x1. So, for correction, capitalizable cost charged as expense sa 20x1, 300k, then sa 20x2, wala kasi yung effect ng error, hindi siya nag-counterbalance. Yung depreciation expense na hindi na-recognize sa 20x1, deduction of 60k, bakit 60k? 300k na cost divided by estimated useful life na 5 years. Then sa 20x2, deduction of 60k din. So kapag tinotal yung corrections, sa 20x1, 290k, sa 20x2, 110k. So to compute for correct profit sa 20x1, 1M add 290k, that is 1.29M. Sa 20x2 naman, 2M less 110k, that is 1.89M. Next, to compute for correct retained earnings, yung given mo na unadjusted retained earnings sa 20x1 which is 2.2M and 4.2M sa 20x2. I-release natin yung corrections. So yung understatement po sa inventory ng Dec 31 20x1, 50k, no effect sa 20x2 dahil its effect has already counterbalance. Capitalizable cost charged as expense in 20x1 and 20x2, 300k. Then cumulative depreciation expense na hindi na-recognize. So deduction of 60k and dahil cumulative times 2. So sa 20x2, 120k. Pag tinotal natin yan sa 20x1, 290k and sa 20x2, 180k. Yung correct retained earnings natin for 20x1 is 2.2M plus 290k, that is 2.49M. Then sa 20x2, 4.2M plus 120k, that is 4.38M. Relationship between accounts. So pagdating sa periodic inventory system, yung relationship between accounts, nagpo-provide siya ng guidance para ma-determine natin yung effects ng counterbalancing errors sa profit or loss. So meron tayong tinatawag na direct and inverse relationship. Direct relationship, kapag yung isang account ay understated, yung related account doon is also understated. Kapag inverse, pag understated yung isa, overstated naman yung isa. So example ng accounts na may direct relationship ay ending inventory at profit, beginning inventory and purchase at cost of goods sold, and asset-related account and profit. So yung asset-related account, ito yung mga prepayments and accrued income. Yung mga inverse naman ang relationship, ending inventory and COGS, and beginning inventory and purchases at profit. Tandaan na ang mga ito ay applicable lang sa periodic inventory system. Events after the reporting period. Ito yung mga events favorable and unfavorable sa company na nag-occur between the end ng reporting period and yung date kung kailan authorized for issue yung FS. So ano ba yung tinatawag nating date of authorization of the FS? Ito yung date kung kailan yung management in-authorize niya for issue FS regardless kung final na ba yung authorization or subject pa siya for further approval. So para mas maintindihan natin, tingnan natin itong time frame. So for example, yung reporting period ng entity ay nag-end ng Jan 31, 20x1, then na-complete yung FS niya Jan 31, 20x2, sinabit ito at in-authorize for issue ng 5/15, 20x2, then ng 5/28, 20x2, sinabit siya sa mga shareholders for approval. So yung events after the reporting period, ito yung mga events na nag-occur within Jan 1, 20x2, and 5/15, 20x2, which is yung date ng authorization. Meron tayong two types of events after the reporting period, adjusting and non-adjusting events. Adjusting events, these are the events that provide evidence of condition that existed at the end of the reporting period. So yung event na yun, nag-exist siya at the end of the reporting period pa lang. So therefore, from the word itself, adjusting, so you need to adjust yung amount dun sa FS mo to reflect those events. Non-adjusting events, ito naman, di na natin need ng adjustment pa because these are the events which indicate that the condition that arose after the reporting period. So then, nag-exist yung event after na ng reporting period. And dahil dyan, i-disclose na lang siya sa notes if material. For illustration, dito sa problem, si XYZ company, ang kanyang reporting period ay nag-end ng Dec 31, 2020. And na-authorize for issue yung FS May 1, 2021. So case 1, sabi dito, nag-purchase si Mr. Go ng property ng 2020 kay XYZ company and filed the lawsuit in February 2021 after discovery of the defects. According to XYZ's lawyer, it is probable that XYZ company will pay damages amounting to 350k. So dito, events after reporting date natin ay yung pag-file ng lawsuit noong Feb 2021 at yung estimate na 350k. identify natin kung adjusting or non-adjusting. So dahil yung condition mo, existing na siya noong year 2020 pa lang, which is yung pag-purchase mo ng equipment, kaya adjusting event siya. So for initial entry, none. Dahil noong 2020, wala pa namang lawsuit na final. So para ma-adjust yung amount, yung adjusting entry natin for Dec 31, 2020 is debit loss on lawsuit and credit estimated liability on lawsuit na 350K. Dividends. So yung dividends declared after reporting period, hindi siya nare-recognize as a liability at the end of the reporting period dahil wala namang present obligation na net-assist at the end of the reporting period. Going concern. So under past 10, yung mga events after the reporting period indicate that the going concern assumption is not appropriate, therefore the entity should not prefer its FS on a going concern basis. Disclosures. So ito yung mga i-disclose natin sa notes. Yung date of authorization is kung sino ang nagbigay, an update on the disclosure to include the effects of the adjusting events, and yung mga non-adjusting events na material including yung nature ng event, and the estimate of its financial effect if you can make it. If not, then a statement that such an estimate cannot be made. So that's it. Thank you for listening.